Travel back in time to the 80s, reliving the laughter. The heroes.
Pick up your phone and call the professionals. Go Ghostbusters.
And the honesty.
What's up, Norm?
My nipples. It's freezing out there.
Because just like you, we're stuck in the 80s.
Sure, it's not 1985 right now, but who knows what tomorrow will bring.
Hey, welcome to Stuck in the 80s. It's your host, Steve Spears.
And Brad in L.A., or should I say Brad in Hollywood.
I thought you were going to do that. I knew it. It's almost like I could see into the future. Today on the podcast, we talked to two filmmakers who are about to give us a sci-fi movie inspired by some classics in the 80s that will blow your minds. It's time for our talk with the directors of Time Trap.
There's something down there. And they have a radio.
Professor Hopper? This is Taylor. We're here to get you out of here.
Kara? Taylor.
Who is this?
Taylor, help me.
Professor Hopper? Is that you?
Stuck in the 80s is a member of the CLNS Podcast Network. You can find our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and the CLNS Media mobile application.
Say it with me now. Everyone together. We've only done this like for 50 straight weeks. And don't forget to listen to the podcast on the CLNS Media website. You can find it at Everyone at Once, anyone, clnsmedia.com. And as always, we plead, please, if you love our show, share the links on social media, and don't forget to like our page on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
Time is passing differently down here than it is on the surface.
What?
It's the sun. Rising and setting. It's the only way that Furby's tape was days ahead of ours, even though we all came in at the same time.
What? How long have we been down here for? I had a date this weekend.
Seriously? We've been in here weeks, maybe months already.
So Brad did not join me for this amazing interview. Ben Foster and Mark Dennis are the co-directors of Time Trap, and Mark also wrote the screenplay. This movie is coming out in theaters on November 2nd and on digital on November 13th. Let me tell you, Brad, how I described the movie to them.
Okay, and what was their response? So yeah,
yeah, I told him, I said, look, I've when I tell friends about this movie. Here, Steve goes into his whisper voice again.
Oh, whisper mode.
Guys, when I tell people about Time Trap, here's what I say. I always try to do is a 30-second elevator pitch. But if I had to, I'd say it's H.G. Wells meets Land of the Lost as directed by Steven Spielberg. And they loved that.
Of course they did. You compared them to Spielberg.
Well, what are they going to do, too?
Like
interview
pandering.
over.
I love it. Yeah, exactly. That's it. We hate the 80s. We're not releasing the movie anymore.
You've hit us once too often, Spearsy. It's like, how do you even know my nickname? I haven't even talked to you yet. Anyway, so Time Trap is a movie that came to our attention. We heard that the filmmakers had a strong influence from the 80s. And movies like Back to the Future and movies like Terminator 2, they talk about as being one of their favorite movies. Not an 80s movie, but obviously from the 80s franchise.
Would you say that they had an unhealthy obsession with the decade?
I think you and I have an unhealthy relationship with the decade.
If they do, then we should have them on more often.
They're great. They really were. They're a lot of fun to talk to. Ben and Mark met at the University of Texas in their first film class when they both noticed they were wearing nearly identical Back to the Future t-shirts on the same day. So it was meant to be. Yeah. Time Trap is this. It's a weird, strange movie in the sense that it starts off and you're like, okay, I'm with it. It's set in the cave country of Texas. Yeah. And where a group of kids go searching for their archaeology professor who is looking for a group of hippies that disappeared a few decades ago.
I couldn't figure out this one thing, Steve. There are all these archaeology students and professors. I didn't see one whip.
It's because they exchanged it for the idol.
Oh, throw me the idol. I'll throw you the whip. Okay, Got it.
So that was good, though. Very smart thinking. The movie goes from like 0 to 60 at about like the 10 or 15 minute mark, where suddenly they're all in this cave and weird shit starts to happen. Apparently, and I don't want to give away the ending. That's what's really important here is like the last 30 minutes of this movie I cannot give away because it will ruin it for you, and you'll still want to see it, but then you'll be pissed off that I told you what it was.
And you won't speak to us.
But if you see the trailer, you'll know that what's obviously going on here is that time passes much more slowly in the cave than it does above.
Right.
And hijinks ensue. And not in a comedic Scooby-Doo sort of way, more in a demented kind of death and destruction and just all around, strangeness.
Pretty wacky. It's pretty wacky.
It's fun. It is a fun movie. When I watched it at about the 20-minute mark, I'm like, oh God, I'm in. I can't turn it off now. But a lot of people agree with it. It won several festival awards, including the Special Jury Prize at the Houston International Film Festival. It won the Audience Award at the Hill Country Film Festival and the Hollywood Film Festival's Most Innovative Feature Award. So it is definitely worth your time. The interview is going to be fun. Ben and Mark are two funny guys who really enjoy talking about movies in general. And a lot of times there's probably about 20 minutes of this interview on the cutting room floor where we just talk about great movies that we love and why we love movies and stuff like that. Some of it's in the interview, some of it's not. Some of it's just for me. But sit back and enjoy our conversation with Ben Foster and Mark Dennis from Time Trap. Ben Foster and Mark Dennis, welcome to the Stuck in the East podcast. How are you guys doing tonight?
We're doing good.
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Well, we're here today because your new movie, Time Trap, is coming out, and I watched it the other night, and I loved it. Let me say that first of all. But I've been trying to describe it to my friends, and they always kind of insist on the 30-second elevator pitch version of any review I want to give. So I boiled it down to, and don't be offended by this, because I mean this as a high compliment. It's H.G. Wells meets Land of the Lost as directed by Steven Spielberg.
I love that.
I don't think that's an insult at all. That's great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mark, you wrote Time Trap. How did the story come to you?
Do you want me to give you my elevator pitch or our elevator pitch?
Yeah. If you have one.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. Well, we have to do this all the time. It's about a group of archaeology students who go looking for their missing professor who has gone looking for the Fountain of Youth. And they go down into this mysterious cave trying to find him. And when they get in there, they become trapped and they discover that time passes differently inside the cave than it does on the surface. Hijinks ensue. How did the idea came out? We were trying to make this other movie called Enduro, and we were sending offers to actors like Billy Bob Thornton and Pierce Brosnan and trying to get them to sign on so that we could do some foreign pre-sales and raise some more of the money for the movie. And we would send a offer to one of these guys, and we'd have to wait like 2 weeks to hear back. And I think we sent one to Billy Bob Thornton. He said no. And then we sent one to Pierce Brosnan. And I remember just thinking, God, we have to wait another 2 weeks. I just want to know what my life is going to be. I just want to know, are we going to make this movie? Are we going to, never get anything made? And I remember thinking if I could just go forward 2 weeks and find out the answer to that, I'd be set. And I was actually in Ben's bedroom. He was out of town. I was staying there, and I remember thinking if I could just step into his closet and fast forward, that'd be awesome. And I thought, oh, that's a cool concept for a movie. But it didn't make sense to do time closet. So being from the Texas Hill Country where there's caves everywhere, and you grow up going to caves and going to even field trips from school, you wind up going to like Natural Bridge Caverns or the Cave Without a Name, all the local caves. I think it just kind of got implanted into my subconscious to eventually one day make a cave movie. And the scariest movie I've ever seen is The Descent. When I saw that, I was just absolutely terrified. So I think some of this is paying homage to that with a bunch of chicks going down into a cave. And we don't have the same kind of monsters, but we definitely have a little bit of the scariness.
Right. I've heard that some of the classic time travel and sci-fi movies of the 80s were an inspiration to both of you on this. There's even a nice Goonies reference in there when you describe Furby. So I'm curious, in the 80s, you guys were still in school, high school, middle school, elementary school?
Elementary school for me.
I was born in 82, Ben's 84. So we were elementary school during the 80s, but that time period of our lives was all of those movies are the ones that we went to see, in the theater. And then when VHS and DVD came out, they were the ones that we watched on repeat. And that's probably why those mean so much more to us, because we were constantly watching 80s movies whenever we were learning that we wanted to be filmmakers.
The 80s was full of so many movies that had time travel or time-space continuum issues as a plot line. What is so attractive about that in filmmaking and storytelling?
I think
I would say that.
I was just going to say that you can do so much with it. You can go anywhere, and some of the best stories are always fish out of water stories, and the ultimate fish out of water is somebody that's out of their own time, and we've got a few of those in Time Trap.
I would say that I think it's like an adrenaline shot to your imagination, because we can picture so many different things about what our life would be like if we went in these different directions, and we could picture how our life would be different had we done something else, like It's a Wonderful Life. And I think that's why time travel is such a relatable idea, because we all wish that we could change something, or we all wish that we could see our future or see a future and potentially change it as needed. I think it's a universal desire.
What are these movies in particular with a time travel aspect really made a mark on you during those years?
Well, I grew up loving Back to the Future. I mean, that's the sort of ultimate time travel movie, I think anyway. I never got into to Bill and Ted that much. But because it was just not as I don't know, it didn't have that Spielbergian kind of adventure to it in the same way. Like there's a life lesson to walk away from with Back to the Future, or Interstellar has a lot of time travel stuff to it. I don't know. It makes you think about your place. The existential crisis in the movie crosses over into my own life when I watch those movies.
Well, I mean, that's sort of the whole gig here at Stuck in the 80s is like, for 13 years, I've been talking about a 10-year slice of my life over and over
right.
again. And we even have a segment called Podcast Time Machine, where people write in stories and tell us if we gave you a key to a time machine, how would you use it? What event in the 80s would you go back and change? And we get these ridiculous, amazing stories of like heartbreak and devastation and all this stuff. And if I just said that I liked her, if I just kissed her that night, it would have all been different, Instead, I live in Flint, Michigan, and my life sucks.
Well, it's just because they're thirsty.
One of my disappointments with movies, or maybe the lazier movies, is that I can usually figure out where things are going next and where things are going to end up. And then once I kind of do that, I sort of lose my connection to the movie. But with Time Trap, there's this weird, I don't know if this is intentional that you guys wrote it this way, that you staged it and wrote it this way, but I feel like as I'm watching it, I'm trapped in the cave myself, and I only uncover things at the split second that the characters do. And that it becomes sort of a roller coaster, and it just starts gaining speed towards the end. Was that intentional almost to make the audience practically participants in the travel?
I think it's actually because the movie follows a rule, which is once you go in, you basically pause and the outside world continues going. I think once you start to follow that idea, there's only so many ways that it could go. Eventually we're gonna go, so far into the future. And if you start thinking about if these kids go into this cave and they're, much further into the future, you have to think, okay, so who came in before them? Well, anybody who came in before them could have been from 50 years ago. They could be from 200 years ago. They could be from 10,000 years ago. And once you have just that general idea of the cave is basically a pause button, it's sort of, I don't want to say it writes itself, but it limits you in a way to what it can be. But the things that it can be are all very interesting. And that's how the story was written.
My podcast co-host watched the movie for the first time last night, and he's been obsessed all day with trying to figure out how many years pass above every hour as they're in the cave. And he's come to he's an engineer. He's come to the conclusion that 900 years pass with every hour inside the cave.
Maybe I'd have to get a calculator, but I think what we've figured out is it's about 7 seconds per year. I
think it's 3.5. Isn't it?
No, it's 3.5 between the solstice.
We did this one time. We did a cut of the movie and realized, we should probably make sure that we have an answer in case we're on a podcast someday and somebody asks us. And no, I'm saying we did all the math to make sure that it made sense. because we knew people were going to call us out during Q&As and call us out in interviews. And we have since forgotten what the answer was, but I think that's right.
You can tell just by looking at the thing. I mean, 900, what is it, 900 years per hour? Is that what he said?
900 years per hour, yeah. That seems
sounds
like
right.
That
I mean, that's
right.
what we know it's thousands of years. I mean, this is a spoiler alert, but we know it's thousands of years by the time they're at the end of the movie. So I think they're in the cave for what, like 4 years?
That's the spoiler.
I don't know. I don't want to. I'm going to try to be real careful and not give away any part of the second half of the movie, because if you do, it just, it's like telling people what's at the end of Space Mountain. But so you've been this movie has gone around. It's been in some film festivals, right? And you've been showing it to some audiences. What are people saying in general about it? What are people coming up to you and asking you afterwards, aside from the how many years pass in a second?
There's like 10 questions that they ask us, and we've gotten used to answering them and kind of come up with clever answers to make them more entertaining for ourselves and for the audience. People always want to know the budget. No, seriously, like it's when we first did a Q&A for this, we didn't know what people were going to ask, and they would ask the budget, and we would kind of give them an answer, and then we started to figure out, okay, let's make the Q&A more fun and make it kind of a stand-up comedy routine. And for those 10 answers, we've figured out how to make it more interesting. Even if it's not entirely true, people know that it's not true, and they get that we're just kind of joking with them and saying, it's none of your business what the budget is. But it's usually, what's the budget? How did you get the idea? What's it like to co-direct? What's it like shooting in a cave? Ben, what else do they ask us?
I don't know. What did we shoot on? Where were the caves?
They want to know what happened to
the dog. That's right. Yeah, that's the big one.
Oh, yeah, the dog. Yeah, I did kind of think about that.
We won't. We shouldn't answer. We won't answer that. I guess Ben did. The answer.
I'll bleep it out.
Yeah, just put a big bleep right there.
The caves are in several places. We shot at the Caverns of Sonora, which is just up I-10 in Sonora, Texas. It's voted the most beautiful show cave in the world. We shot there for 4 days. Ben had a friend who had a cave on his property that we shot at for 2 months. And that was, we originally told him we would have like 20 crew members and no more than 5 cars. And we exploded. We had way too many people that we needed to come in, and his property turned into a massive parking lot, and we stayed way longer than we thought. But, the movie got finished. We also shot at a quarry in Round Rock near Austin. And then we shot at the old Bronson Cave in Bronson Canyon in Hollywood, where they shot the Adam West Batman series. So when Hopper goes into that cave, that's the Bat Cave.
Oh, nice. There's some nice trivia for you. So there's no sets. This is, everything was shot in an actual cave.
There's a few interesting stuff. We went through for iTunes. We're doing all of our iTunes extras and looked at our behind the scenes footage and some photos. And we found a few shots where we had built, there's this thing called black wrap that you use on a film set, and you kind of, mold it around lights, and it's essentially aluminum foil. And, we saw all of our old photos from some pickup shots where we just painted black wrap and made a little aluminum foil room, fake rock. And that's really the only set that we built, at least outside of a cave, to shoot the movie. But there's a lot of sets that we built inside of the cave. So that whole fountain that Taylor gets dragged into, and the boulder that she's standing on top of before she makes her climb up, and a lot of that wall that she's climbing up, we found these caves that worked, and then we augmented them, with foam rocks and all kinds of stuff and plaster.
I have to ask, because the movie ends, and again, I'm not going to give it away to people. It ends on a note where you're like, well, there's got to be a part 2. I mean, I got to know what happens next. I mean, do you have in mind the idea to somehow continue the story, or was it meant to sort of be like, no, that's how we want to leave it with you. We want you to walk away and wonder about the possibilities.
Well, so there's 2 answers. The first answer is we were so tired of making it that we had it end the way that it does, so that people would think, oh, there's no way that they could make a part 2 because of what happens. And apparently that didn't work, because everybody asks if there's going to be a sequel. They're like, what's the sequel? Where's the sequel? When are we going to see it? And the answer to that question is about a year ago, we were talking to a television studio about making it into a limited series that kind of fell apart. But it gave us some really great ideas for mapping out like a longer story for these guys. And if it winds up being successful, if enough people if enough people watch it, we might be able to do that someday. We just have to get the word out and have people find out about it. But if it is a limited series, it'll be very, very cool.
That's awesome.
You'll love it. It's way cooler than the movie.
If you could actually be here, you would have seen me waving my arms as you're answering that question, because my next thing was going to be, wouldn't this have worked so well as like a 10-part series on Hulu or Amazon Prime, or wouldn't the next part work so well as that? So like the fact that you guys are kind of thinking the same way is nice, man.
It almost happened. We thought for a while that it was going to happen. We were going to shoot it in Mexico, and I don't know. I think we got. I don't know how close we came to it, but it was enough to make us realize we should continue to pursue the idea in the world. Does
that medium, is that attractive to you? The idea of doing a 10-part series for streaming versus doing a feature film?
It wasn't until I'd seen True Detective, and I think once I saw True Detective, I realized that you could make something amazing and cinematic in a long form. You don't have to narrow it down to 2 or 3 hours. Before that, I would never have wanted to do.
And
TV
you can spend time with those characters and get to know them better instead of have to blast them through the insane ideas of the cave. You can take the 8 episodes and really do something there too.
It just seems to be such a trend these days in Hollywood. Is I mean, you even had the Karate Kid comes back as Cobra Kai with 10 episodes, and so you finally get to understand why Johnny's such an asshole, and stuff like that. So to me, it just seems like it would be appealing, but at the same point, I can understand why it's using a different set of muscles from a filmmaking standpoint.
There's just so much to this idea in that cave that I think it would kind of be the ultimate way to tell this story anyway. In this case, I don't think everything is like that. I keep wanting to
like say something about the movie and then talk about the pirate ship just to mess with people, but I realize that then the people who there's no pirate ship in it if you're listening. But I just keep thinking that if I say something like that, people are going to watch it looking for a pirate ship. They're going to be so disappointed and realize that we were just messing with. Yeah, they're going to be like, this isn't a Goonies ripoff after all. Like
Speaking of Cobra Kai and stuff like that, what is it about 80s movies in general that make them such targets for remakes and sequels these days in Hollywood?
I think it's because the idea is the main thing, whereas when you go into the 90s, it starts to turn into the special effects and digital effects, and a lot of that is real hokey and it's hard to buy it. But back in the 80s, they were still doing everything practically. And it didn't look perfect, but back then when you watched something, you didn't really notice that it was imperfect because it was the coolest thing that had happened since ever. As you get into the 90s and the 2000s, the effects become so good that the 80s stuff didn't look as great, but the idea was still really big, and you everything is centered around the idea.
But they're all coming back today because there's an audience for it, and there's the people that are our age and 40s and 50s, they want to relive the things that inspired them and excited them when they were young, and I think that's why they're able to come back and take their kid and give them a taste of it. I mean, that's a big part of the Star Wars thing, and I think a lot of people are walking away crushed from that stuff. But
people are always knocking remakes and saying, "Oh, I wish they'd just leave it alone." And maybe
always show
like
up.
That. My thing is, if they do, but if you like something a lot, even if somebody remakes it and makes it terrible, the original is still the original. It's still enjoyable, and somebody screwed something else up later, but it's still fun to see that world again. And I would rather take that world. I would rather see that world and it be ruined than never see that world again, because it's so great to be able to go back to that original feeling.
Well, that's my favorite thing about the new Terminator that Cameron's doing right now. He's just going to do Terminator 3 and pretend like they didn't fuck up the other ones since he made his. That's what I heard.
Is that true?
He's just going to call it Terminator 3. That's fucking great.
Yeah.
What?
I've heard the same thing.
The ultimate dick move. It's great.
Yeah, that's always my take on Hollywood too, is that you remake Ghostbusters now, you not only get the 50-year-olds who saw it for the first time in the theater, but you get their kids who get dragged along because they're into the new cast and stuff like that. So
yeah,
but rarely ever is the sequel or the remake just as good. And Ghostbusters, I think, is one of those perfect examples of one movie that just was just awful as a remake.
Yeah,
but you're right; it doesn't ruin. It takes nothing away from the original.
Yeah, and and it could. I mean, Rogue One was a great addition to the Star Wars thing because they didn't try to get into the Skywalker thing and mess with any of that. They and it felt like, Empire Strikes Back. Like everything felt like an 80s visual effect. A lot of it, I thought. So, they didn't try to young it up too much. Right, exactly.
You guys worked together before on Strings, the movie Strings, back in 2011. And I mentioned to you guys before we started recording, I've been watching that right now. What is it about the partnership between you that works so well?
I think we're so different, and we grew up with very different kind of family dynamics and in different areas, but we still share a love for the same kinds of movies. Ben and I met on the first day of film school at the University of Texas. We were both wearing Back to the Future shirts, and we walked out of this giant auditorium with like 300 kids in it, and we saw each other wearing the same shirt, and we're like, "Hey, cool shirt. Yeah, you too." And we were just like, what an asshole. Like, we didn't like each other immediately. We didn't realize this until much later. I want to say years later, we were talking about it, and we realized, oh, you were the guy that I talked to. But I think it's just having one thing in common more than anything else, which is really loving the same kinds of movies. And I think that's why it works.
And I feel like where you are weak, I'm strong, and where I'm strong, you're weak. Wait on, did I just do both the same thing?
That's it. I forgot about that. No, I was thinking that, but I never said that part of the answer because I forgot what I was talking about. I saw my neighbor walk by in a Speedo, and I completely lost my train of thought. And it is not a beautiful woman. It is a big 60-year-old man who should not be wearing a Speedo. Ben is great with organization and being responsible and figuring ideas out. Like, if I would take a script to our screenwriting class in college and our professor would be like, yeah, it's cool, but there's no way you could make it. Ben was like, no, we're going to make it. And we made it. And I think that complementing each other's, strengths and weaknesses is where it's at for us.
And there being two of us, because making a movie is one of the most stressful things that you can do, and being on set, doing a high concept movie with no money makes it even worse. And, there's times on set where one of us is just fried and we're done. And we can just look at each other and be like, all right, I'm leaving for 10 minutes. Good luck.
Tell them the wedding thing, how you describe it to people about planning a wedding.
Oh yeah. It's like planning a wedding, except it's 27 days long and each day is different and you've never done it before. A wedding, they spend so much time planning these things, and it's the same exact day. Like I got married in February, and the wedding planners have no idea how easy they have it, but they like to act like it's hard.
A movie is a 70-person wedding every day for a month in different locations with like timed completely differently, and somebody's always mad. Yeah. Well, actually,
that's Bridezilla and Groomzilla. I mean, that's your whole cast, or somebody depending on the days flipping out.
So there's your 30-second pitch for a career in
have fun.
Don't do it.
Okay, big finale question here. If I gave each of you a key to a time machine, what specifically would you do with it? And yes, you can have a joke answer, and then you have to give me a serious answer.
I think I would do the almanac thing. I think Back to the Future 2's got it right. You go get the sports almanac.
I think I would
win. You get to come back, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it works exactly as you think it does, as you want it to.
I think I would be real simple. I would just get whatever those lottery numbers were the other day from that South Carolina person and just find out what they were. I mean,
Mark and I both just try to get rich,
but it would sure be nice. Yeah, like we could make the thing is we just want to keep making movies, and if we could just pay for them ourselves, that'd be fine. Like we're in our 30s. We could probably, if we had $1 billion, we could easily make movies for the rest of our lives and never need anything else, and that would be fine with me.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And you can finally give me the 10 episode series on Amazon Prime that I want so badly for time travel 2. That works for me. Hey guys, this has been great. I've really enjoyed having you. Best of luck on time travel.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us on, man. It's been fun.
There we go. What do you think, Brad?
That's a good interview. Those are fun guys. I kind of am curious to see the other movie that they made after seeing this.
Strings. I've been watching it I've been watching it downstairs on iTunes.
Yeah.
It is when I first got on the phone with them, I told him, I'm watching Strings right now, but I'm only halfway through. I said I had to turn it off last night because it's so dark. And I'm like, oh, what scene did you turn it off at? I'm like, where he leaves his girlfriend and he's walking down the hallway. They're like, oh, it completely turns 5 minutes from there. And you won't be... from what I've heard, Strings is a lot like Time Trap in the sense that the last 2 minutes of it is just like, what?
Yeah. I forget what I sent you at the very end, but I was like, there's a lot of emotional baggage packed in the last 30 seconds of this movie.
I have the text here. I read them your text.
Oh.
They were impressed. They're also impressed that you're able to figure out that how many years pass above while they're every hour down in the cave.
That's just the kind of guy I am.
They were really impressed.
Well, are they hiring?
I don't know. Oh, you said, last 1 minute of film, WOW.
So I really enjoyed this. I kind of, I could tell you had enjoyed it more than maybe you would have normally let on, because you were asking me 3 times a day, have you seen it yet? Have you seen it yet? No, dude, I'm at work. I can't watch it. No, I was really tired from, being at this trade show all day. Have you seen it yet? Have you seen it? I'm like, I'm going to watch it. I promise. So, yeah, I watched it last night. As I've said before on other shows, I always kind of keep a running notes file open so I can just write stuff down.
Me too. Yeah.
And the first thing I have here is going into a cave alone. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Well, they bring a rope.
That's right. The next one is, dude, that's not a Jeep. That's a Land Rover. I'm in love. I love that truck. I want that truck. Then, okay, this movie is freaking me out. I am covered in goosebumps.
Yeah.
At some point, I wrote, what the actual... I don't even know what was happening at that point. So, yeah, I enjoyed it. It definitely kept my attention.
Yeah, it is. And you could see the 80s influence as you go through it. I mean, it's like I said, there are elements of The Time Machine from H.G. Wells. There's definitely a few Land of the Lost moments. And there's this nod. There's even a little a throwaway line about the Goonies in there.
Yes, I did think about that because it said, the line from the Goonies, down here, it's our time. It's our time down here. Up there, it's their time.
It is good. These guys really had a love of 80s movies. They grew up watching them. It's part of their DNA, just like it is ours. And it shows in the movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Hims Skincare. Have you ever looked at a photo of yourself from 5 years ago and thought, damn, I look like I've drank too much Wild Turkey? Actually, yes. That happens to me all the time. Along with the question, why did this guy move to Orlando? Anyway, Hims Skincare is the answer to all my problems. It is the thing I can do to fight against aging, and it's staring me right in the face. Forhims.com. It's a one-stop shop for skincare, hair loss, sexual awareness. I'm doing it again. I break down at this part of the ad every time. It's like the skip. It's like the skip in REO Speedwagon's High Infidelity. Steve. Technically, nothing is staring you in the face. You are listening to a podcast. But later on today, when you're thinking about all the better ways you could have spent a half hour today and listened to Spears mispronounce words, you can call up your web browser and check this out. Forhims.com. While you're there, check out the Hims Anti-Aging Kit, which I'm pretty sure includes a spritz of club soda with a twist of lime.
Ooh.
Either that or it's a custom prescription cream tailored to your skin that can help keep your skin looking great by reducing the appearance of wrinkles and fine lines. The secret is, Brad pronounces this word.
Tretinoin.
And it is apparently backed up by science. Real science. Not weird science. Takes seconds to apply, and you don't have to visit some fancy dermatologist or pay high prices to get it.
Nor it is with a Pershing missile in your bedroom.
Yes. Neither should you be wearing bras on your head. Well, I don't know. That might help with the lifting problem.
The end might justify the means.
Yes. In the 80s, it always did. Do you want to be a face in the crowd or the face in the crowd? Sidebar here. Why do I have to be in a crowd? I'm kind of a loner. I think most people know this by now. Anyway, order now and save $20 off your first month of Hims Anti-Aging Kit. Go to forhims.com/80scare. That's forhims.com/80scare 80s, 80s care. That's forhims.com/80s care. If I say it one more time, I'll trigger another schism in the time-space continuum, and that's not good. Support forhims.com because they support Stuck in the 80s. And we're back. We have a few more minutes to talk about Time Trap. One of the questions I asked them was about, is there going to be a sequel? And they were kind of like, well, it's kind of, there's obviously room for one. And they talked about the idea that there was some interest at one point, and maybe there will be again, depending on how the movie does, about doing a episodic series on streaming services, which is perfect.
There's a lot there. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, they love the idea. It's just a matter of, is the entertainment audience out there for it? So go see the movie or rent the movie on streaming services and cast your vote, as you will, for Time Trap.
Vote with your dollars.
One of the more interesting things I thought was I had to ask him because, it's not too often that I don't think I've ever talked to directors before. Well, no, that's not true. I have. I talked to Steve Pink at one point when he did Hot Tub Time Machine. But I asked him,
that's a theme.
I asked him, why Hollywood is so gung-ho to make remakes of our 80s classics. I really didn't know what they were going to say. And I thought their answer was kind of interesting, which was that, let them do it. It gives people a chance to relive something from their past, and it doesn't diminish the original property. And I thought that was an interesting point. Like, it doesn't diminish. The new Ghostbusters sucks, but it doesn't diminish the original movie.
It doesn't. Yeah, they don't run around and delete all the old copies.
Right. It's not taking their mojo or anything. So it's like, well,
we haven't quite gotten to that point.
Right. So let them take a chance at it and see why not. So anyway, these guys were really fun. It's a fun interview. They have another movie out. It's from 2011 called Strings, and it's more of a dark noir type movie, at least for the first half. Okay. And then they tell me the second half is more like a love story, and I'm like, there's no possible way. It's like someone telling me that the next chapter of my life is going to be a love story. It's like, there's no possible way. So, there's a couple possible ways, but we're not getting into that today. Anyway, Time Trap in theaters for a very limited run, 5 markets, I believe, on November 2nd, and then out on digital later in November. Please watch it. I think you're really going to enjoy it. And check out our Facebook page to watch a trailer of the movie.
Yeah, and if you see it, let us know what you think. Drop us a line.
This episode of Stuck in the 80s is brought to you by Robinhood. Really? Actually, Robinhood is an investing app that lets you buy and sell stocks, ETFSs, options, and cryptos, all commission-free. Robinhood's goal is to take money from the rich and give it to the poor. No, I'm sorry. Robinhood's goal is to make financial services work for everyone, not just the wealthy. Oh, I get it now. That makes sense. How do they do that? How does Robinhood do this? By enlisting the help of their Moorish friend and attacking the sheriff of Nottingham.
Wait, you're crossing the streams again.
Actually, how they do it is by offering an easy-to-use, well-designed app that makes sense and is easy to use for people of our age. And the cost's super low. Other brokerages charge up to $10 for every trade. Robinhood does not charge commission fees. It doesn't even have a fake English accent. So, anyway, with Robinhood, you learn how to invest as you build your portfolio, and you discover new stories and track your favorite companies with a personalized news feed. So what are you waiting for? Here's the deal. This is the takeaway. Robinhood is giving Stuck in the 80s listeners a free stock like Apple, Ford, or Sprint to help build your portfolio. Sign up at stuck.robinhood.com. That's stuck.robinhood.com. Investing has never been so stress-free. You know what else is stress-free, my friend Brad?
The Seggies.
It must be the mystical theme song that is the theme song to our segment about theme songs.
Whoa.
That
it's getting
part
deep
about,
here.
I know.
How many years just passed?
Yeah, 900. Or for my liver, 1,200.
Oh.
Anyway, you know this segment, we play a snippet of a theme song from an 80s TV show. You're much more sharp on this show than I am this week. This is not going to be the one where people say, tell me that story again about your stupid snafu. Yeah,
with the stuff and the thing.
Right, exactly. We'll play a snippet of a TV theme song. If you get it right, you're into a drawing for a bottle opener. Usually this is the part where I stumble around and pretend like I don't know that our swag is a bottle opener.
Yeah, that's okay. Insert stumbling around here.
Oh, by the way, I didn't tell you this. I bought some new swag today to give away on the 80s cruise.
Oh, yeah? Nice.
As prizes. They're little miniature arcade games. I bought one for Galaga, Pac-Man, and Space Invaders.
Excellent.
So if you were on the cruise, and we came up with a new thing this week because we were telling people on Facebook about how we had these prizes, and people were like, yeah, we don't really like the participation questions because
only one person gets the point.
Only one person gets the point. I'm like, well, how about we just give a prize? And no one had a problem with that. So,
well, yeah, that it's like out of it's out of sequence. It's just like a side game. Right. It's a side hustle.
It's a side hustle. That's a phrase in itself these years. Anyway, pay attention. Here was the clip from our last show. That's L.A. Law. Brad, did you watch the show in the 80s?
No.
I did.
I do remember someone dies falling down an elevator shaft.
Oh, yeah. I can't remember who.
That's pretty much all I know about it, and Susan Day was on it.
Oh, and Jimmy Smits.
And some guy named Mark.
Some guy named Mark. That's great. I can't believe we've been doing a show about the 80s for 13 years, and it all boils down to some guy named Mark.
Some guy named Mark.
Anyway, why don't you read the winners? Some of the winners.
Some of the winners this week. I'm going to read every dang winner I had an email from. Winners this week include Tim and Toadsuck, John Cluxton, Dave Augie August, Anonymous Dave, who apparently is not the same person as Dave Augie August, but they emailed pretty much right on top of each other. Not suspicious at all. Get yourself together there, Dave Nation. Tommy Doucette, Alan Titus, Brock in North Dakota, Canuck in Colorado, John Demacus, Dale from Portland, Edward in El Paso, Charles from Yorktown, PA, Nate Chops Johnson, Matt Kimber, Peter Ryan, Kevin of the Wenches, Gail in DC, Alejandro Stix Cardoso Solis from Tijuana, Mexico, Ann in Northern California, Anfield Albert Anaya, Brian Pon, and last but not least, Eric in Cincinnati.
Why don't you spin that wheel of fun and let's see who gets a free bottle opener. And looks like it's going to land on Anonymous Dave, if that is your real name. Send us your postal address. He says with a little contempt, postal address. No, I'm fine. I should stop saying snail mail. That's lazy. And we'll get that right out to you. In the meantime, pay attention. Here's this week's Mystery TV theme song. If you know it, email us at podcast@sits.com. And tune in a couple weeks to find out if you're a winner. In the meantime, don't forget Time Trap coming out into theaters on November 2nd. Later on in November on digital. I think you're going to really like it. The last 5 minutes alone is worth the price of admission. Right, Brad?
I am on board
Steve.
with that.
You betcha. Hey, and in the meantime, the filmmakers of Time Trap, Brad and myself, we remain here, hopelessly stuck in the 80s.
Stuck in the 80s is a member of the CLNS Media Network. Special thanks to Check Battery Daily for our theme music. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or the CLNS Media mobile app.